Okay, so I showed some of the removal of stitches and cutting of this fabric, but I want to explain what this is. As usual, I am attempting to work with thrift finds that I have had for these costumes, and this is no different. So for Merida, she has the shift clearly underneath the dress. There's the part in the elbow and the part at the shoulder where it's just the sleeve portions with fabric strips sewing them together. And then it's the sleeves and then the neckline of the shift underneath. So what I did is I had a old, and I think I mentioned this, I was looking for something cream colored, not stark white, to see if I had that. I knew I had plenty of stark white that I could use coffee or tea or whatever to color if I needed to, but I was trying not to have to do that. I already spent quite a lot of time dyeing the linen itself, although I'm very pleased with that. So I found a bed skirt that I purchased for a different project quite a while ago. I don't remember what project, but I do remember there was a specific purpose in mind for that, and I needed not the actual skirt fabric, I needed the fabric that goes under the mattress for a bed skirt. And again, that was quite some time ago, and I don't remember why I needed that fabric, but it has been used, and I was down to the actual bed skirt itself, which is, you know, one really long piece of fabric. So I'm gonna make it work. So what I've done is I cut two portions that I'm leaving the hem on, and I'm going to utilize the fact that I already have a hem and hopefully won't have to hem up this. But then I cut it into 6 strips that are roughly equal. I'm being very rudimentary with this. Took out the hem of 4 of them and then pressed it flat. You can still see where it was in the hem. And then I'm just going to take it over to my serger and sew them in the long strips. So not the short sides, but these long ends. Do 3 and then 3 again with, and then sew those 2 sets together at the top, so there's going to be one hemmed section on either end, if that makes sense. I'm going to try to show it to make one long panel, because what I'm going to do is I pulled out my costume close-up book, which this is the shift that is in this book. It's a 1780s through 1810s shift, but it will work just fine. In that this is the basic, you cut a long strip of linen, cut out the neck hole in the middle, put a drawstring in the neck hole, and use squares and gussets to make the sleeves, and then cut off little bits right here out of this section to make it flare at the bottom. So that's the plan. I'm going to use this. It's just going to, rather than it already being one really long piece, and it's not linen, it's cotton, it's obviously, I have to sew it up. This is going to be completely under the dress. It's going to be something that she has as a part of this costume, so I don't need it to work under any other costume. I have a whole bunch of 2-inch strips that this is going to be folded over and used as a ruffle at the top. That's going to be the main part that shows up under the linen for her dress. And then I cut initially two rectangles, but I did taper them. So this is going to be the top and this is the bottom. And it's a little bit wider up here with 2 gussets per sleeve, because this is going to be a long sleeve, so it needs to taper down at the wrist, with some strips again to be the ruffle that's going to show out from under the linen on the wrists. And hopefully these will be long enough because this is all I had for this. Hopefully the ruffle will add me some length on the, will add some length on the sleeve if I need it. I literally have this much left of this bed skirt. Once all of those panels were sewn together, this really didn't take that long, but it worked. I laid it in half, so that middle seam was my guide, and I used that as the shoulder seam. I brought my shift over from my historical outfit to just mark the neck edge out roughly. I knew that, I mean, she's not quite my size, but she's getting awful close, so I knew I could use the same neck measurement, and it's going to be gathered up a little bit anyway, and then cut that out before laying it down again in half and evening up the side edges and cutting off the pieces that are the gores and then sewing them on. And I'll show it in a second when I get to the gore part. Once I cut those off, they obviously were not hemmed because they were cut off the top part that wasn't hemmed. And so I hemmed those up really quick before I went and sewed them to the bottom, since the bottom was already hemmed. So that is what I'm showing in this clip. And I do want to say really quick, while I'm just cutting, that this was a very quick project. It may not look like it was a very quick project because of how many shirt changes I went through and how many days this represents. But I know I say it a lot, but I just don't think I could have really anticipated exactly how busy things would get with all of the different activities that my kids are doing. So it may seem like I'm dragging this project out purposely. I really am not. This is literally how slowly I'm getting around to it. And I feel pressure for the first time because we are rounding the corner on, I don't know if I'm going to have time to get mine done, which is fine. Hers is more important, but the fact that she's 13 and she really wants me to dress up with her, I know that I don't probably have too many more years of this, and I want to enjoy it while I do. So I'm trying really hard to get mine and hers done, and it's just taking me so long. That's okay. I'm really happy how this is coming out. So yeah, just showing those hemmed edges and then sewed them on and did not do the side seam. Okay, so the gussets are, no, gores. I'm going to say it, the gussets go on the sleeves. The gores are on, so if you can see, now it gets really wide at the bottom and it's a little bit thinner at the top. And so I will sew up these side seams. However, the first thing is to put these sleeves on. So for the sleeve, so here's the top of the sleeve, and I'm going to center it over here and sew it, center it over this part here. So here's going to be the shoulder seam, and find the center, right sides together. I'm going to come sew it down, and then if I'm remembering, trying to remember the best way to do this. So the gusset is basically going to go under the underarm as a diagonal like that. So I'm going to lay this out and make sure that I get this on correctly, but that's next, and then you sew up the side seam. Okay, so the gusset is sewn on, did a quick serge right there. This is the top of the sleeve. So to complete the sleeve, this is the crazy part of the gusset is, so the other top is going to come over And the bottom, so we've got this here, it's gonna come to the bottom of there, and then I will serge it down to the tip of the sleeve and then bring it back and show that. So this is the under sleeve here. So that's the underarm seam. And then this is going to be taken over to here, and I'm going to pull it right side. So when this is folded in exact halves, so this is going to match up right here with the top seam. That's the tip of the shoulder. I am running out of time. Okay, so here is the gusset here, and here is the tip of the part that's not sewn. So I folded it in half, lined up the top half with that top seam, and then I pinned it down to where the point meets on this side seam. And I'm going to come start here, work my way around, then come back down on this side, meeting at that point, and then continuing on down the side seam. And then when that is finished, it will look like this. So we have the top of the sleeve, the gusset here, and then it just keeps on going down, and that makes the sleeve and the gusset to make it movable. So I'm gonna go do that, and then I have to go pick up kids. I'm already running a little bit late, but it's fine. I got that seam sewn. I got to the school in time. We were good. So the boys are home. I think they're about to put on some Pokemon because homework got done. So we're gonna hop back into, so we have something that looks like a shift. I'm pretty excited about it. So holding it up to myself, it goes just below my knee, which she's almost as tall as me at this point. So yes, I am going to add a little bit of a ruffle at the bottom with a different fabric, because also that'll help, I think, give her a little bit of volume under her dress. So the next thing to do, the raw edges that I have left currently, because remember this bottom edge was already hemmed except in the gores, and I hemmed those. So the next thing is the neck edge, which I'm gonna wait until she tries it on before I do the wrists, because I want to make sure that that is long enough. So the next thing is this. Okay, doing my best to show it, but I did have to piece these bits together to make a strip long enough for the neck ruffle. I did also have to piece them for the sleeve ruffle later on in the video, but once they were sewn together, I did not serge these. I pressed the seam out flat, one on either side, just so that it wouldn't be bulky. Came over. This was really simple. All I did was press it in half. Once it was pressed in half all the way down, I closed up that final seam, pressed it out, and then made sure it was in a good pressed loop. Took it over to my machine at the longest stitch setting and ran 2 rows of gathering stitches, and then gathered it up to the neck edge, sewed it down. I did end up serging it, although I really didn't need to do that, because then I went and got twill tape and used that to cover all the raw edges and form the casing for the string that's going to gather up that neck edge further. So all of these clips are just the process of me doing that, gathering it up, pinning it, sewing it down, and then we had the neck edge. So this is my serger that puts a row of stitching at the same time that it's putting the serged edge on. So that's why I used that here. And I did speed this footage up 300 times so you can see how long it took when you're trying to make sure that you don't serge over a pin and serging on a ruffle. And then I used my little tool here to weave the string in. And then once it was all the way through, I gathered it up some, but I had to wait till she got home from school to try it on to make sure that it was the correct width in the neck and it was gathered up where it needed to be. And I'll show it later, but I ended up not putting this on the outside of the garment. This is completely on the inside, so it's just permanently gathered up at the neck edge, and then that is completely sewn closed. So this little handy tool, which I will link below with an affiliate link, is wonderful for this. Okay, I'm gonna apologize, but my voice is croaky. It has been for several days. It's not coming back, and I need to film this so that I can move on. So I had my daughter try on the shift, and I decided not to go with the drawstring in the front because I don't see that in the images. I don't see a drawstring there. I see the string that's in the lacing at the top of the actual outer dress, but not in the shift. And even with it gathered, this head hole is so big, she'll not ever have a problem getting it over her head. So I left the opening in the lacing channel in the back, had her try it on, cinched it up, I've knotted it. I'm gonna go tack that down and then close this up so that it won't unknot and come out again, and then that will be fine. She is the perfect length for the arm, so I needed her to also try it on before I did the ruffles on the sleeve. So I've got just enough length to do the ruffle and sew it on and do it exactly how I did the ruffle for this top part here. I mean, except that I'm not going to use the tape there for because there's not going to be a gathered channel here. It's just going to be serged and then tacked down. And then the other thing is, as far as length is concerned, I'm going to add about 10 inches of a small ruffle on the bottom. I don't want it to be like huge because, you know, the point of Merida's dress, she's supposed to be able to move and stuff in it. But this isn't going down far enough with what I had left of the, fabric from the bed skirt. So I'm going to go find some of my other off-white and just make a quick extended little bit wider than the actual bottom ruffle. It's already hemmed up because I used the already made hem from the bed skirt for all but the gores. And so, yep, it is looking great. I had her also try everything with her arm movements to make sure that she could, you know, simulate pulling a bow and arrow back. And yeah, so that is where I am. I really didn't want to go any further without at least updating everyone, and I've been waiting for my voice to come back, and it just hasn't yet. And so it doesn't hurt, it just sounds fun. So alright, so on to the sleeve ruffles and then the bottom. So as with the neck ruffle, again, these are just pieced strips. I believe they were 2 inches wide, and then pressed them in half, seamed up that last seam, pressed it again till it was in a loop, ran 2 rows of gathering stitches, gathered it up, and sewed it to the sleeve, into the sleeve, and those ends are just serged down. And then once that was serged on, I did top stitch it down on the outside so that when she sticks her arm in the sleeve, it doesn't catch on that bulky seam and push the ruffle out. And the thread matches pretty well. It's barely visible as a top stitch, plus it's going to be under the green dress anyway, so it doesn't matter. So that is this process. And then for the bottom extension, I ended up not doing a ruffle, and I will get to that footage in just a minute. I just extended it. So I found enough scraps of other cream colored cotton that I had to make enough strips that were the 10 inches extension wide that I needed to sew them all together into one loop to be the exact width of the bottom of the shift. And then I just sewed it up under the already done hem. I did serge that top edge that went up under the hem, and I did try to show it, but it's very bright and it's really hard to see. But I didn't really feel like I needed to do anything fancy there. Again, this is a whole project of just piece together fabric anyway. The point of it is to have the shift for under her dress. So that is what I did, and that completed it. And I did end up not following the exact hem around the side seam where I had sewn the gores in, because it dipped down a little bit and I didn't want that to follow that dip. So I just went straight across where that dip was, and it hangs over a little bit. It's fine. And yeah, and that is the completed shift. I'm really happy that this part is done. I did film an original outro for this, but after the croaky clip that I filmed earlier that day, my voice completely went out and I was whispering and squeaking for a few days. Lovely laryngitis. I get it every once in a while. It's been a few years since it's happened. My twins thought it was very funny that I was whispering all the time. So anyway, that outro is no good, and I don't really have time to do another one, so I'm just throwing it into the voiceover here. I appreciate you joining me for this process. It was a lot of fun to get this done. Again, it was a lot faster than what this footage is showing. It really was a quick project, and I'm excited to get on to the outer dress. So there it is. It's completed. She's tried it on. She says she feels like she's in a cloud, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but very comfortable is the word I got from her. So I hope you like and subscribe. Tell me what you think, and all supplies I used will be affiliate linked below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one for her outer dress.